Many famous UFO sightings occur in remote locations with just a single eyewitness, but not all of them. Some sightings have taken place over large cities, and hundreds of people have watched. Join us as we investigate the most famous mass sightings of UFOs, each one supported by countless eyewitnesses, all looking for the answer to one question: are aliens visiting Earth? A global effort has begun. Secret files hidden from the public for decades, detailing every UFO account, are now available to the public. We are about to uncover the truth behind these classified documents. Find out what the government doesn't want you to know. Unsealed. Alien Files. Exposing the biggest secret on planet Earth. We all want to know for sure. Do aliens exist? And have they visited Earth? Many experts believe that only one type of UFO encounter can promise hard evidence of the existence of aliens: a mass sighting.
A mass UFO sighting is an event that occurs where not one, not two, but multiple eyewitnesses will see the event. This is very important because when you only have one witness that has a story, or maybe even two, they can easily be mistaken. What you want is a mass sighting in a city where they don't have the intent of finding a UFO. And those do occur. They're rare, but they absolutely do occur.
Unsealed case file: the Madagascar incident. August 16th, 1954. Antananarivo, Madagascar. Dozens of Air France personnel have just received a large mail delivery and are quietly chatting near one of the busiest streets in Madagascar's capital. Suddenly, someone points to the sky, and everyone on the street is stunned by what they see.
Thousands of people witnessed a strange object. It appeared at first as a green plasma heading for the ground, and people thought perhaps it was some sort of fireball or meteor. In all, it's almost impossible to assess how many people saw this thing, but it was certainly hundreds, if not thousands, possibly tens of thousands.
They expected after it dipped behind a hill that it was actually going to crash, and they expected a big explosion. But there was no explosion. A few moments later, they saw the craft again, and it seemed like it had increased a bit in size visually from their vantage point. And they see that there is not only that one UFO, but then a second metallic-shaped UFO object that seemed to be trailing it.
Witnesses also described a flame shooting out from behind the second UFO.
Was it alien? Was it a top-secret program? We simply don't know. But the reality of having well over 1,000 witnesses to this, of highly educated, trained personnel, and when they look at something and they go, this is not like anything we've ever seen before, that's something that they knew was not explainable.
Witnesses included Air France technical personnel, including Monsieur Campagnac, who was a former military officer and one of the key witnesses.
Campagnac describes a lens-shaped, green plasma-like object the size of a DC-4 aircraft, and it's being followed by a smaller, silent, metallic UFO.
These two objects passed directly over the town, witnessed by hundreds, maybe thousands of people, and he, as a former military officer and a highly competent scientist for Air France, was clearly an extremely reliable witness.
Years later, the French government performs a comprehensive study of UFOs, and the Madagascar incident is seen as a key piece of evidence.
Monsieur Campagnac told his story to Cometa, and it was one of the reasons, perhaps, why sensationally, Cometa concluded that some UFOs may well be extraterrestrial in origin.
When you see an unexplained craft in the sky, of course it could potentially be man-made. There's always that possibility. But this was 1954. We are now well into the 21st century. If this was technology that was our own, if this was manufactured by humans here on Earth, my guess is we'd see something like this already.
Technology aside, can mass sightings lead to mass hysteria?
In the 1950s with the Robertson panel, it was concluded that these UFO cases could absolutely be the cause for this mass hysteria. that it wasn't the aliens themselves, if they were here, being that threat. It was the people themselves, the humans here on Earth, that were the threat. Because then all of a sudden you realize you're just simply not in control anymore. Everything that you've been led to believe is gone.
The thinking was that if people were literally panicking in the streets over UFOs, the Soviets might plant false UFO stories as a prelude to attack or invasion. This was one reason why the US government came to think maybe these sightings aren't real.
But local eyewitnesses in Madagascar were not hysterical, because as they claimed, they had seen these UFOs before.
What they saw was very genuine. They saw what they did. They described what they saw. They had no kind of prior exposure to these types of topics before. And that in itself makes that witness testimony much more valuable.
These were uncontaminated witnesses whose testimony is extremely important.
And there's another group of witnesses whose testimony is not affected by traditional media.
Dogs were barking. Barnyard animals were going crazy. Something was clearly upsetting them. And what was particularly intriguing about this was that the sphere that was completely silent seemed to provoke the most reaction. This is something which takes a UFO sighting from the realms of speculation into, well, clearly something happened for all those people to have seen it.
Coming up, a mass sighting in New York State highlights the vulnerability of America's power grid. Welcome back to Unsealed, Alien Files. Mass sightings of unidentified flying objects are rare, but when they do happen, investigators are flooded with evidence.
When you have, let's say, 50 witnesses or 100 witnesses, the chances of them all being mistaken on what they saw is pretty nil. And so I think when it comes to evidence, a mass sighting is really what you want to see more than anything else.
But what happens when a mass sighting becomes a matter of national security? Unsealed case file, the Hudson Valley sightings. December 31st, 1981, Hudson Valley, New York.
The Hudson Valley UFO sightings are probably one of the most significant mass UFO events in history. There were, over a series of years, but peaking in 1983, certainly so far as media interest was concerned, a total of around about 5,000 individual sightings. And this was entire communities caught up in this whole affair.
One of the first reports came from a retired policeman.
It all began by a retired police officer going into his backyard, sitting on his porch, and he frequently watches the commercial airliners fly overhead. Now, expecting that's what he would see. He then saw this mysterious triangle-shaped craft with different colored lights on it that he simply could not explain.
Local police are flooded with calls.
Police said that their normal business was impeded. They just couldn't respond to the day-to-day reports of crimes because so many members of the public were calling in saying, we're seeing UFOs.
The Hudson Valley UFOs are estimated to have been seen by over 7,000 people, generating an overwhelming variety of descriptions.
Now, what people were seeing predominantly were individual lights in the sky, but these lights were in formation, and it appeared that they were on the underside of massive V-shaped craft. And some people have described these in terms of, I've heard phrases used like flying Walmart or flying football fields. These things were on an almost unprecedented scale.
Then, on July 24th, 1984, the UFO is witnessed over a highly sensitive power plant.
The most disturbing aspect to the whole Hudson Valley UFO wave was the sighting over the Indian Point nuclear power plant. Now, at one point, a UFO was seen directly over the installation, and really a matter of feet away from the reactor. And at that point, of course, there is, as there always is, a total air exclusion zone around this.
The Indian Point nuclear reactors are operated by the federal government and are rumored to provide power for a number of secret government bases in Connecticut and New York.
When you talk about a sensitive installation like a nuclear reactor, to have an unidentified aircraft above that installation is a big problem. But if this is 1,000 foot long and they have absolutely no idea what it is, that's a really big problem.
If an aircraft, for example, were to crash into this, you could have a nuclear disaster on the scale of Chernobyl. For that reason, the power plant supervisor at one stage contemplated contacting the authorities and ordering an airstrike on this mystery object.
As the tense moments play out, witnesses are worried not just about what is in the sky, but why it is there.
Did the UFO have this nuclear installation under surveillance? Was it some sort of reconnaissance? Or was there hostile intent here? Nobody knew.
It's not surprising that they would want to create some kind of offensive maneuver to get this thing away. Call in an airstrike, scramble in some jets, whatever they have to do, but they needed to get that craft out of there.
After hovering over the reactor for 15 minutes, the UFO suddenly vanishes.
Clearly, this shows that there are huge issues raised by this phenomenon, and it's something which clearly governments can and do take with the utmost severity and importance. Something here is going on, and we need to know what it is.
The Hudson Valley mass sightings catch the attention of Project Blue Book's former chief scientific advisor, Dr. J. Allen Hynek.
Hynek could find no conventional explanation for these Hudson Valley UFO sightings. He could conclude what this wasn't. But I mean, this is the ultimate irony of UFOs. You can say what it isn't, but he wasn't able to say with any degree of confidence what it was.
That we are still lacking that evidence, that smoking gun, to definitively say that there was an alien spacecraft over that nuclear reactor. Was it possible? Absolutely.
To this day, these sightings remain a complete mystery, and if someone like Hynek, who investigated UFOs for the government, can't come up with an explanation, who can?
Coming up, authorities are baffled when a mass sighting across France has a concerned public demanding answers. Welcome back to Unsealed Alien Files. Aviation experts and UFO investigators are often stumped by mass sightings, leading many mass incidents to be judged inconclusive. Some say incomplete data is to blame, while others think something else is at play.
When you talk about a society who sees a certain type of alien or gets described an alien encounter over and over, you're kind of bred to believe certain things about alien encounters. And if that one person believes that's what they see, then the next person will back that up, and the next person will back that up.
Unsealed case file, The French Wave. November 5th, 1990, France. In one of the world's largest mass sightings ever, over 1,000 people in one night report a series of UFO sightings. The reports are tracked from the southwest of France, traveling diagonally to the northeast.
On November 5th, 1990, about 1,000 witnesses in France witnessed multiple flashing objects in the sky. They were not commercial aircraft. They could easily dismiss all of that. So whatever these UFOs were, they believed that they were from another world.
Some people described fast-moving lights, but others described a more structured craft. And again, one sees with this case the idea that there are perhaps larger structures, motherships, out of which come smaller scout craft.
Some witnesses even described that they were making maneuvers, like making turns or actually increasing elevation.
But the most credible accounts of the mass sighting come from pilots.
A particularly significant aspect of these French sightings were the fact that some of the witnesses were pilots. These UFOs were seen and reported by a number of commercial airline pilots.
British Airways pilot Captain Mike Dalton and his crew are flying near France above Genoa, Italy, when they witness a triangular formation of lights maneuvering at speeds that defy known laws of physics. Dalton later states, quote, "It had to be something from another planet because it was definitely not man-made."
These people are excellent witnesses and the least likely of anyone to misidentify all the sorts of usual things that perhaps people mistakenly report as UFOs.
European ground radar is unable to confirm Dalton's sighting. But the following night, NASA gives an explanation. Debris from a Russian Proton rocket had burned up upon re-entering the Earth's atmosphere.
Now, that could be very plausible, but rocket fragments don't increase elevation, they decrease elevation.
I've spoken to astronomers about this sort of thing, and they tell me that this would be a high-altitude firework display, visible for no more than a few seconds.
But experienced pilot Captain Mike Dalton remains convinced, telling the media, quote, "In all my 23 years of flying, I've never seen a craft, anything like this."
That's potentially an aircraft of some kind, a spacecraft of some kind. So over 1,000 people witnessed. Could they all be wrong? Probably not.
Coming up, some experts believe mass sightings are on the rise, and it may be an ominous sign for the future of mankind. Welcome back to Unsealed, Alien Files. A large group of people witnessing the same UFO is rare, but many in the UFO community believe mass sightings are on the rise.
The frequency of UFO sightings themselves are definitely increasing. If you look at the last 10, 15, and 20 years, you do see a very big increase in the rash of sightings around the world.
Are we building up to something? I don't know, but every time there's an acceleration of pace in this phenomenon, that's certainly one possible conclusion.
But for some experts, a mass sighting alone is not enough to provide the world with sufficient proof of an alien existence.
I think that history shows us that a mass sighting in itself, all over 1,000 witnesses, videos from multiple angles, photographs, and so on, will not convince the masses.
One scenario that I suppose would certainly resolve this for once and for all is a mass sighting, for example, over the Super Bowl or over the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. Now, something like that would take the whole UFO phenomenon from the realms of speculation across the line into absolute hard fact.
I think really to make that final determination for society, as the human race, a world society, to say that aliens are real, you do need contact of some kind. When it comes down to it, they're going to need that alien to land on the White House lawn, come out, and slap the president across the face and say, "Tell your people we're here." And I think that that's ultimately is what's going to happen.
This is Unsealed, Alien Files, exposing the biggest secret on planet Earth.